Michael with United Veterans Worldwide, excited for an interview today with my friend Ashley. Ashley and I came in contact with each other via social media on Instagram. I found her link, found her content to be great, and found her advocacy to be even greater. And had a chat with her on the phone, and it was really helpful to learn her story, which is similar to other stories that I have experienced personally. And I really feel that for this global audience today, her message is going to be one that will resonate with you, and also provide some hope at the end that shows that there's a journey of healing that we're all on, and eventually in that journey one of the milestones is hope, and we run right through it and provides another catalyst for us to continue to grow and move. But right now I want to introduce you to Ashley. Ashley, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on your channel. I'm excited to be here. My name is Ashley Rogers. I am a Navy veteran and now currently work for a nonprofit called Guardian Revival, and I help run the Peer Services division there.
Yeah, incredible. And within those brief sentences is a whole lifetime of experience. So let's go backwards a little bit. Why don't you start at the beginning, Ashley, and tell your journey from where you grew up into coming into the alignment with going into the service.
Sure. So I grew up in a smaller city in Vermont and went through high school, started college, not really knowing what I wanted to do, was dealing with some family challenges on top of that, and really got to this point where I felt like I needed to leave in order to be able to fully start my life. And the military randomly came into my life, and I got to the point where I said, you know what, I'm going to do this, and this is my way out. And it really surprised a lot of people. No one expected for me to go into the military. I have a lot of uncles and grandparents who served in the military, but they never expected me to also go or follow in their footsteps. So it very much so changed my life. I went to boot camp, then went to training in Pensacola, Florida, then ended up in San Diego for about 8.5 years on an aircraft carrier. So I worked in the weapons department there. I deployed to South America, spent a lot of time out to sea. And along with that, I had joined the service with my now ex-husband, but we had decided to join the military and take on a new journey. And I ended up marrying into special operations, which brought on a lot of its own challenges. And even before that, becoming a woman joining the service, you quickly learn that it's more than service or discipline. It meant you're going to start meeting a lot of challenging perceptions and feeling the weight of those certain stigmas. People often assume that you're less capable in this uniform being a woman, or that you're just there by chance, or that you need to prove your commitment by being a female in service, especially on a ship. It was a very male dominant ratio on the ships. So there was just this added pressure of what a woman could define or achieve in uniform. And with that too, it also was you were constantly tested on your ability to lead, to perform under pressure, or really just to be taken seriously. So the years that I was in, it was constantly challenging all of those stigmas and learning that, us women in uniform are much more than those things. And I've met so many amazing women in service who have done incredible things. So I'm just very thankful for the experience. And, I have coworkers who became friends and then chosen family, and still to this day have them in my life. And we've all shown up for each other through challenging things, through our personal lives, through work. And it's just been a beautiful experience.
Oh, that's wonderful. A couple of things really stand out to me. First and foremost, you're from the beautiful state of Vermont. And for the global audience, Vermont is located in the northeast of the United States. And it's a place with lots of hardwoods, lots of farmland. But it is, in certain seasons of the year, some of the most beautiful sites of red, orange, yellow, green trees across, in all of the United States. It's probably the most beautiful place for that type of scenery. But it's also very much a small town oriented type of a state, right? Where I don't know many people from Vermont, so Ashley is one of them. That's that's great. Second thing that stands out, you're on an aircraft carrier. Which one?
So I was actually on three.
Okay.
I was in a unique situation. I was on the USS Ronald Reagan, then the Washington, and then the Theodore Roosevelt. So I ended up on a 3-carrier hull swap, which meant I was on 3 carriers within 6 months or so. We went pierside with another carrier. I was in San Diego. The Washington came back from Japan, and my ship was going to relieve that one in Japan. So we swapped crews of who was going where. I took the Washington around South America to Virginia Beach, which is where I'm currently located, and then flew back from there to go on the Theodore Roosevelt, who was on deployment from Virginia, and then home porting to San Diego. So they called it the CVN 220 crew, I believe is what we called it. So we were moving a ton of different people around within 6 months. It was a little hectic, but it was a great experience at the same time to be on 3 different ships that are the 3 carriers, but they all have different things about them that we all had to relearn. Especially in the weapons department, we had certain areas and things and places where we had stuff or our processes, and we had to relearn those for each place we went to. So,
yeah, that's a wild experience. So for people who don't know, an aircraft carrier can hold up to like 6,000 people. It's like a cruise ship, but without all the fun.
It's like a little floating city, you know, with the full air wing. I think we're about at 5,000 people.
Yeah,
you definitely get your steps in for the day walking around that thing.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I started my career in 1999 in the Navy as a corpsman. So I was a corpsman for about 7 years before I crossed over into the Army and jumped into more combat-related experiences. But yeah, what an incredible journey. I wanted to tell you, someone in my community that I heard whisperings about was a veteran, and it was a female, and she's an older female, and so I approached her and I said, hey, I've got a YouTube channel. I talk to veterans all over the world, and I really wanted to talk to you about your experiences. And she said, no way, people will just make fun of me. And I said, why would they make fun of you? And she said, well, you had to understand, when I went into the service, there weren't many females, and I got harassed and made fun of and belittled because I was a female. And that made me so sad, because she served in Desert Storm. She was on a contingency operation in Europe at the time, and for her to be capable and committed to her service in the military for a number of years, and then to feel ashamed afterwards because of the way people felt. And I'll just make it known on this channel that it doesn't matter the gender. I've seen so many capable people in every field, even combat arms, who were capable of doing the mission and carrying the weight. And so, Ashley, thanks very much for your service, and I recognize that as a huge contributor to us overall in our conflicts. So thank you.
Absolutely. I've met a lot of females. One of my good friends now, she's active duty in the Army, and she has some really powerful stories, and she just started getting more vulnerable with me recently about some of the things she experienced overseas, and it was really powerful. And she said to me, she's like, wow, I've never shared some of this with anyone before. And so I felt grateful that she found me to be a safe space to share some of these things with. So I understand where some women can just suppress this and want to hold off on sharing some of these things they've experienced, whether, from being shot at, sexual harassment, many different things that can happen in these dynamics.
Yep. No, they share the same similarities in conflicts. They share the same burdens afterwards, leaving the military. And if their voice is silent, then they carry much more of that burden. And it doesn't need to be silenced. It needs to be shared. So thanks for mentioning that. Ashley, let's move forward into the career. Let's talk about a couple of events that really stood out, including in your marriage to within special operations, what are some of the highs that stand out, and what are some of the lows that really stand out?
Gosh, so marrying into special operations, that was quite the ride. I got to be alongside him when he went through BUDS, and the whole process leading up to that, to getting into the military, to going through BUDS, to graduating, and then everything that brought on after, which we both really had no idea until we went through it, what that was going to look like, especially with me being in the military as well. And really, they got to do a lot of cool experiences. Some of those I got to be along the ride for and be there alongside for. And really, it just took us away from each other a majority of the time, even through training, workups.
Yep.
They were gone.
Yep.
About, I'll say 75 to 80% is being a little generous. It could have been more than that. So we really entered into a relationship and then a marriage in a difficult dynamic. We were communicating through limited email when I was out to sea, minimal phone calls, just only seeing each other here and there. And we're both in these heightened environments and having to come back home and get on the same page to then go do it again. And we had decided at one point to start a family, and I became a mother. And 2 weeks after I had my daughter, he deployed for 7-8 months after that. So he had missed the first 8 months of my daughter's life, and then my daughter had done 3 deployments after that. So really, my parenthood journey was a lot just me, and really the support of my friends, my military friends who were out there with me. They became, part of the family. They were so helpful. Even his coworkers and friends and people we knew just in the community just show up for you. And that was very important to our journey. This is like the chosen family that you make. And, it brought on a lot of other struggles too, and just feeling very disconnected and having a hard time getting on the same page, coming back down from these heightened situations. And I think even just for myself being on a ship, I didn't realize that I was operating in a higher level of stress all the time, and I wasn't ever really coming down from that. And I didn't fully realize that until I was out. And because there's so many things that they stress you out about, and things that don't make sense, and
Yep.
put you in these scenarios that shouldn't make you feel this way. And it wasn't until I separated from the military that he said, I think I went to shore duty first. I went to shore duty, and they said, wow, you're much more enjoyable now that you're not off the ship. And I was like, oh, thanks.
Am I? Yeah.
And then when I got out, it was another again, you're much more enjoyable now that you're out of the service. So I said, I just made you take a step back and look at how you're operating without even realizing it. And, for him, he wasn't really realizing that he wasn't checking out of work status, or treating me like a bro or someone on the team, or just not having certain abilities like empathy, or just the capability to just be there and be present. Your mind's always elsewhere. And I mean, it's just a common theme that you see in these dynamics. And so it brought on a lot of challenges with us. And even though there's all these resources out there, we were hesitant to seek help and see what we could do about it. And a lot of it was excuses oh, we don't have time, I'm gone, you're gone. It was just a constant revolving door of that. And once I got out, I became a DoD contractor and was supporting the Navy mission from the civilian side for naval submarines. And then we had my son, and had moved to Virginia from San Diego, where he continued on in the teams. And essentially that had led to divorce for a number of different reasons. So that's currently what we're navigating, and it's difficult. It's definitely challenging.
Yeah, you mentioned at the beginning that you were a dual military family, and dual military family doubles the stress, doubles the challenge of deployment and redeployment, and all of the stressors that exist on both ends of that. And you guys really endured a lot together for a long time. And, I can relate coming out of the special operations side myself with civil affairs. That community can be really tight-knit and supportive in a lot of ways. But when we talk about enduring a fight or flight experience with high stress all the time, and we don't have an ability to turn that down because we're constantly on operational status, fight or flight gets broken. And so the flight turns off, the fight's always on, and we're always intense. And in that moment, like you said, empathy can disappear, anger can be quicker, reactions are very fast. And in a combat environment, in a high stress environment, that's essential. But not when we get back home and we're making dinner and we're sitting down at the table. Like that type of reaction can't exist in a healthy form. And unfortunately, so many of us are challenged with that ability to cope in a healthy response. I have a friend, Ashley, I was starting to tell you before we started the interview, I have a friend who served as a Green Beret for a number of years, and he was someone to look up to in so many ways. He had a lot of children, he had a great wife who was super supportive and sacrificed everything for him to continue doing that mission. And he was just a muscular dude. I wondered if he was on steroids for a number of years, because he was just jacked. And I was like, dogs, that guy's huge. We went to church together. We had a great, experience together. I remember he came home from a deployment once, and he was standing across the street in a park. And he was watching his kids on the playground, and then he got this 200-mile stare at the ground. And I knew he wasn't in a good space head-wise, and I ran out there to him and just gave him a big hug, and he just sobbed in my arms because all of that built-up stress was just so heavy. He saw his best friend killed on deployment. Whatever, reintegration is always a challenge. And he ended up making some sad mistakes. He ended up cheating on his spouse, and it broke her heart. Broke the trust of the kids, and she ended up leaving, and it put her in a spiral for a long time. And that story is not uncommon to special operations community, where a guy can't turn to, a guy or girl, let me say it that way, can't turn to alcohol and drugs and still go to work every day without it being noticed. But they could turn to some kind of a sexual addiction and cope that way. Or I say cope, it really is just suppressing. And making poor decisions that lead to unhealthy situations.
Yeah, I would say that is pretty common in this field, if you will. You see it a lot in the military. You see it with first responders.
Yep.
And it's just unfortunate. And through my experience, it is kind of some of the things that were exposed in my marriage and have been challenging to navigate, and trying to stay level-headed as a mother and to move forward through these. And unfortunately, I noticed some of these things in my partner, and seeing there was some self-sabotage there, but not understanding the why, and couldn't get an honest answer through that as well. And that was really difficult, and there was a lot of projecting and other things going on, and just the inability to come to me, which I'm supposed to be that your person, your safe partner, your safe space to come to and have these tough discussions. And it just got to the point where almost like we were strangers to each other. And I think that was the saddest part for me, because we had joined the military together, both left our hometown and started this journey, now understanding that we started a journey in a very difficult dynamic. But through those years, it didn't really give us, we had time together, but what we did with that time and how we used that time and getting out of that fight or flight mode, we didn't know anything. We didn't know how to manage any of that. And now we're in this place where we're looking at each other like, who did we marry? Who are you to me? For me, it's just felt like I've kind of married a stranger in a way. And that's been the most hurtful piece of it. And But we have been trying to do our best navigating divorce and becoming co-parents, healthy co-parents. And that is the main goal there, and treating each other with respect, because, we remind each other that that's where we were. That's where we started. We do care about each other and want each other well, and to be happy. And we don't have to follow the norm where divorce has to be nasty. And we want to be good examples for our kids. And, we're not perfect through this process. We have definitely had our moments, and we have to give each other a little grace with that and understand that we're both hurting and trying to heal at the same time and just navigate new waters. And so it's definitely challenging. But knowing, we've had some foundations reach out, give us resources, and so it's a matter of us utilizing that too. I mean, for veterans especially, there's so many resources for us across the board for different things, and a lot of people don't take advantage of them. And from careers to divorce, counseling, the aftercare, everything, there's so many things out there to support us.
Yep.
So
and when we talk about divorce, we talk about a high op tempo and the family struggles and the dynamics of that. It can lead to some unhealthy mental behaviors, coping, and depression, anxiety, on and on. So how are you doing today, Ashley, with all that you've had to deal with?
I would say I'm doing pretty well. I've had a lot of friends and family say, I don't know how you're doing it. You're so strong and you're so resilient. And they've kind of always known me to be that type of person. But through navigating this past year, I guess that has really shown. And I started a new journey with Guardian Revival, working for a different program in their organization. And then we birthed the Peer Services program, and I got asked to move over there. And through that, we had a training pipeline of different things we had to go through to become peer paracounselors for guardians. And those trainings have been so powerful, and you become so vulnerable in those spaces, and it really acts as a mirror for you to start peeling back the layers. It's not just teaching you how to deal with other people who may be struggling. It really shows you a lot about yourself and how you deal with certain situations, how your habits, your patterns, everything, why you are who you are. And that's been a huge part of my journey in parallel with divorce. And I really think that has kept me in healthy headspace and navigating this. And because I could have easily gone off the rails, and been in a bad place. And that is just not what I wanted for myself. And, the support is huge. My friends, my family, having those connections, even my coworkers who I would consider now family and close friends, they've all checked in on me and make sure that I'm okay, offered their help. It's just been, that part has been so, so powerful for my journey. And I'm very, very grateful for that. So I think, honestly, the support and connection would be at the top of my list for why I am where I am. And but overall, I would say I'm doing pretty well. The days that are hard, you learn to sit with it and just feel those emotions and allow yourself to do that. And it may be uncomfortable, but you have to learn to work through it and not suppress it. You don't want to be drinking and getting into unhealthy habits. I make sure that I'm active and work out. I'm active in my kids' lives and out doing things for myself and leaning back into self-care. All those things are so important. Yeah,
they're huge. They're huge. I interviewed a guy 2 days ago or 3 days ago named Carlo. And he shared an experience, and his message that came out of that was it's okay to not be okay sometimes, and as long as we own it. And my wife's message to me consistently is to own my behavior. If I'm struggling mentally, own it. Don't hide it. Don't suppress it. Don't blame other people for situations or my outburst or whatever, but own it, because that's part of that journey of healing. And I'm so glad to hear that you're doing well. I know we all have our moments, but overall, turning to connection with other people is helping me so much too in this channel. I try to treat everybody's stories with reverence, or treat it as being sacred, because it's the life experience that people are sharing that includes the ups and the downs, and I always walk away benefiting from hearing people's journeys, even the hard stuff. It may make me cry sometimes. It may make me grateful to know that I'm not alone in the struggles that we all have to share sometimes. You mentioned, Ashley, in our phone call, or maybe it was in our discussion prior to today, that you've known people who have gone down that dark path, and we all know people who have. Do you have any experiences that stand out that can relate to this global audience on something, a path that we shouldn't enter?
Gosh, I've seen a handful of people where you recognize the changed behavior. I had a good friend in the military who then went on to be one of our leaders. He was a good friend. He could hang with everybody. He was always a good time, but we always knew that he was kind of a heavy drinker and that he really liked to do that. And a lot of us end up brushing that off because we recognized that's just something that he does, and no one felt that they should maybe say something to him. And his family, I think he started going through a divorce, and his family moved back home to Georgia, and we were in San Diego at the time. And so he wasn't seeing his kids as often. He was constantly fighting with his wife, and I started noticing he just wasn't as happy as he normally was in conversation, and was acting a little down. And I thought maybe it's because he put on rank. There's just all this responsibility that comes with it, and maybe that did play a part in it. And he went home one trip, and he was drinking, and he shot himself in his family's garage on one of his child's birthdays.
Yeah.
And when we all heard the news, we were just completely heartbroken. And a handful of us had just talked to him the day before, within that week. And you just get so angry because you're like, why didn't you say anything to me? We would have been there for you. And that was a really hard loss for a lot of us. And I was just talking with my friend about this last week, and the feelings that brought on, and it was really sad. He was with us the week before that trip, helping fix something on my friend's car, and we went out to lunch and things like that. And just, you get so irritated that you're like, why didn't I recognize this more? Why didn't could I have changed anything, so it's tough. I've seen a lot of people just resort to drinking, especially in the military. A lot of people deter from drugs, but I've even seen people go into drugs or just more depression, not show up for work, things like that. And so I feel like I've kind of seen it all. I know, working with Guardian Revival, we've seen a number of different things come through with our program, and how people are handling their struggles. So it's a learning process, but it's been, again, a beautiful experience to learn how to help other people become mentally better, and just for their overall well-being. I'm just so happy to be a part of that process.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that experience, because that resonates with me and my own journey with others as well. And I lost a best friend to suicide, who was in the same field, who was just a tough dude. I grew up with him. We went to junior high together. We were the strong guys, and we ended up both going into the service, not knowing each other at chosen. We went into the exact same field, like best friends do. And I saw him just a couple weeks before he killed himself, and never said anything about it. And it's horribly hard. So anybody who's listening today who's struggling or having suicidal ideations, and that negative self-talk is saying that you're better off not here, that your family's better off, that nobody cares, it's a total lie. It's not true. The damage you leave is greater than an aircraft crashing, and the destruction, that the pathway that's led. It leaves so much wreckage behind. you've got to get help if those are the thoughts you're having today, because that is not the answer. When we talk about the hope that exists, and I mentioned that, that climb we make and that eventual intersection with hope where you feel like there's something that can happen in the future that's greater than what you left behind. Talk to me about your advocacy with Guardian Revival and what you do, and maybe some experiences that stand out that represent what you're doing.
Gosh, I just have such a love for Guardian Revival. It's an amazing organization that offers so many things for our veterans and first responders. And our peer services program was birthed last year. It was an idea through another program, and we started building it. And then we decided that program should have a baby, and that became peer services. And we have just built an amazing team of veterans, first responders. We have dispatchers, law enforcement, fire, detectives, veterans that are all there. They're all certified and trained. And we have a 24/7 talk line for anyone who may be struggling, who wants non-clinical help. We are there for that support. And we've just had, I can't share too much, but we've had so many success stories come out of this 1 year that we have been operating this, and so many of our peers who are thankful that we are there. And we're just excited to keep growing this program. Outside of our peer services program, we have a hiking program, which is mainly local to upper state New York. We have a music program, so if veterans or first responders want to record music or take music lessons or be a part of something, they can join that. We have a dog companion and therapy program for our veterans and first responders, and we have even a home front program now for the families that stand behind them. And we offer a lot of virtual things, a lot of in-person things, but that's more local to New York. But the virtual things, any veteran or first responder is allowed to come in and be a part of that. So, we also have a RISE program, which is wellness. They do meditation, yoga, mobility, all virtual and free to the veteran and first responder community. So it's just across the board, we're trying to offer amazing things to support that overall mental health and well-being for these communities. And it's just been a beautiful process to be a part of and watching the organization grow. So I just can't say enough about it.
Yeah, I've interviewed several folks who support the Guardian Revival program, and they also exude so much energy and hope through their experiences, which I absolutely love. And I think that mission with Guardian Revival parallels what I'm trying to do here too, but to a greater extent, hands-on. And I absolutely love that and support that. So that's incredible. Ashley, as we get to the close of this interview today, I appreciate you walking me through so many experiences. What advice do you have for veterans, first responders, or anybody who's gone through traumatic experiences who's struggling today?
I would say, the biggest thing is you're never alone. You're not alone through your struggles. For me, I went to a law enforcement seminar, and I was one of the only veterans, and we all shared critical incidences and struggles. And I realized we all found commonalities within each other and our stories, and which then led us to become more vulnerable with each other. So it doesn't matter, if you're talking to someone who's not a veteran, there may be someone there that will understand. There's so many people in the service that will have a level of understanding and will be there for you. And I think so many people just don't want to reach out. And I would say that is the most important thing to do, is to reach out to your friends, even someone you may not think is really a friend, but will be there. I could reach out to someone that I served with, and I feel like I would probably have an ear that would listen if I did that. So I think just finding those connections, finding healthy things to do with yourself and lean in. I think that is really the best advice that I can give, is to just have faith that there is that support and connection out there for you to help you work through all these things. And there will be good to come through that.
Yeah, yeah. And you already mentioned a few of the things that you're doing for self-care, and you mentioned fitness. What are you doing for fitness that gives you additional energy and motivation to handle your challenges today?
So I do a mixture of lifting, and then I also joined a gym called Orange Theory, if people are familiar with that. And I joined that with my girlfriends, and we go together. And that is, we keep each other as accountability partners and making sure it's something we do together and to make sure that we get together. So it's a big reason why we did that. And then I lift in between that. So sometimes they come over and we will work out here. So, but it's more so with the accountability and the connections that I find. I make sure I get out every day and walk my dogs, get some sunlight, and get that fresh air in, whether it's cold or rainy. I make sure I get outside and don't stay just inside on a computer all day. So, and another thing with the accountability, when I was posting different things about simple things of me working out, I had random people that I served with say, hey, let's do a challenge together. So I had one that I started a push-up challenge with every day, and we were messaging, holding each other accountable, made a chart. Another one I did a burpee one with. So I started forming all of these separate accountability partners together. And that had me connect with old friends and people that I served with, and just keeping each other motivated and healthy. So now I'm like, okay, what's the next challenge, or who can I now challenge to something else? And just as something as little as 10 push-ups a day, it's still made that connection.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. One of the things I do when I work out is I always talk about it with my kids. They'll walk in the gym in the mornings, and they'll see me before they start getting ready for school, and sometimes they'll just sit there and watch me finish my lifts or whatever, because I have a garage gym. And that culture of fitness that we're developing is teaching mindfulness, it's teaching resilience, it's teaching we can do hard things to our children, and that's all so important for their journey. So many of us have gone through our traumas without having the tools and the skills necessary to build that strong resistance, right? And it's so important for us to then teach our children that, yeah, we go through struggles, and you're going to go through struggles in life, but there's a way we can rebound from these things as well.
I think one of my good friends also told me is finding the beauty in making space to feel all the things. You can have a good day. You can be struggling through something. At the same time, something good is happening in your life. And it's just learning how to hold space for all of it at the same time, and giving yourself a little grace for all of that to happen, and trusting that process. So I always remember that, on the bad days, I'm like, okay, what am I grateful for, though? What good has come into my world this year? And just practicing that gratitude is huge as well. So holding space is huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and I took note of that, because that's something I need to work on. On a bad day, I've got to make space for to feel everything, which is the good things as well, because there's so much good. There's so much good. Mm-hmm. And Ashley, I
remind myself of that, like through the bad days. I'm like, okay, but what good is happening here? You know?
There are so many good people doing good things in this community. What you guys are doing with Guardian Revival is nothing short of marvelous. I salute you for that, and also for your service, and love the fact that you're on a journey of wellness yourself. And let's keep in touch, and let's not make this the last interview. And I hope that there's some way I can interact with you guys going forward in the organization, so that I can continue to share that great message with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on here today.
You bet. Take care, Ashley.
You too.